Hello. Welcome once again to another edition of Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven. It's Tuesday, March 4th. You know what that means? It's time for indie comics and crowdfunding talk. And my regular co-host, Chris Hall, is here with us, as well as we got someone else just popping in at the last second. Here he is, and he's there. So everybody's here. Chris is here, John Norris is here, and our guest this week, Jamie Jones.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
For those who don't know, or new to the show, or haven't seen Jamie here on the show before, let's have him introduce himself a little bit and give us a little feedback on what you thought of that opening, Jamie.
Wow, what an official look now for the opening. That was so cool. That was so fun. A little bit about myself. I'm a cartoonist. I've been doing primarily pulp action adventure stuff for the last 7 years, and that's been my bread and butter. Most recently, I launched a magazine, or late last year, I launched a magazine called SPAKOW, and that's the juice. That's basically me. Just making and drawing comics as much as possible, and that's my life.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to show a few of your books, if you don't mind, from the past. So let me go ahead and put that back over here. This silly machine does lots of things. The one he's most known for, I suppose, is called the BABOON. This is one of his books, hardcover, called The Mustelid Menace. I don't know. Would you say this is influenced by Eisner and Wally Wood type characters?
We go Eisner, we can go Milton Caniff, we can go Wally Wood, we can go Noel Sickles. I mean, let's just pick some old guy, and I've probably been influenced by him.
Yeah, when I first read it absolutely, my first thought was the Spirit.
Yeah, I'm a huge Spirit fan. Big Will Eisner guy. That's the thing. I have in my recent years, in the last couple of years, I've been trying to really kind of shed that Eisner-ness of me, which is harder and harder to do. But in an attempt to have some kind of originality, be my own self.
But if you're going to kind of emulate someone, Eisner's the guy to do.
Well, I mean, we have an award named after him. That's kind of
yeah.
If you're gonna do it after anybody, do it after Eisner. I'm a huge Eisner guy. It's Eisner Week. Hey, happy Eisner Week. That's a thing.
Actually, Will and I share the same birthday.
Oh, well, congratulations!
It's just he was a long time before me.
Yeah, I did Groucho Marx, and that's my claim to fame. We have I host a drink and draw here in Savannah, Georgia, and because it's Eisner Week, I'm just gonna put on the table just every book, I think, because I have all of them, and just like a collection of the Spirit. But
those drink and draws are fun. They're a lot of fun.
Oh, this thing has been I've been running it for the last 4 years, and it grew from like 6 people getting around drinking and talking about comics to we have like 40 to 50 people twice a month. It's a very big event. Fortunately, I live in a city where there is a college of art and design, so there's a lot of people who want to come out and
SCAD has
and
a huge comics contingent, or is it comics or manga these days over there?
Dude, nobody, everyone, Tilly Walden is their god. That's
Really?
that is their bright star. Yeah, Tilly Walden is
Awesome.
pretty much everyone's go to. Who do you want to have a career like? And it is Tilly Walden, which is cool. And then you have to hit them over the head with a David Mazzucchelli book and be like, hey, you should read this.
Well, no, I remember I went down there when Tom Weil, rest in peace, was still teaching there.
Yeah.
They were looking for possibly having to include me as an instructor down there. And it was like half the students were foreigners who had come over to SCAD to learn, and they're all into, the manga and Korean manhwa and stuff, and they were not into American comics. And Tom's like, how do I get through to these guys? And it's like, well, let me talk to them because I'm multilingual and stuff. And so I was trying to get conversation going with some of them, and they were a little bit timid because they're not, I'm a new person. They don't know who I am and stuff. And they're like, oh, you know these characters, you know this person. So I was like, oh, okay. Now can I look at your portfolio?
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, I see what you're doing. Now here's what he's trying to show you over here, and this is how it applies. Oh, yeah. Once they make the connections, then you can teach. But I always wondered, because after that, because things didn't pan out, and that's not Tom's fault. That was the school's policies. I just wondered how that worked out down there, because I haven't been back down there since.
Yeah, I assume it's probably the same. I've only been here for a few years, and I have no affiliation with the school. I just kind of hang out and talk to a bunch of students now. But I did a portfolio review once, and I think every single person, I was just like, look at more Toth. That was all. Like, that was my biggest thing, was like, you need to spot your blacks better. You need to, really hold down figures. And that was just kind of general across the board. I feel like that's general across the board for most people, though. I don't know if like a 70-year veteran could come down and you could be like, oh, your stuff is perfect. Look at more Toth. I don't know if you could give that's I think like that's probably the thing that you could tell people.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It depends. I mean, a lot of these people get so hyperkinetic and hyper detailed in their art that what Toth does, while it applies, it's very difficult to apply it correctly.
You need to, you just need to be a complete master, and then you can like to do what he did is impeccable and is crazy.
What I'm saying is,
down is so hard.
Alex was like both the simplicity to his work. He never really overdrew, if you know what I mean by that, over detailed. Yep. Whereas a lot of the modern artists these days, go ahead and turn it back off, John. A little too bright for you. Yeah, that's better. I think a lot of the kids try to over-render stuff these days.
Yeah. I think that's probably a general, just a general thing. I think a lot of people over-render a lot, and guys that I love, I think it's over-rendered. I think that's just
which begs the. Oh, go ahead.
No, continue.
I was going to say, which begs the question: are modern artists? Because I harp on this as well. Because I can't. I'm a colorist, and I cannot stand an over-rendered, having to color an over-rendered page. It's a mess. Especially having to do color holds and all that stuff. But that begs the question, in my mind, is it because that is what the editors expect? Or because that's how the artists are influenced?
I think it has to. I've thought about this a lot recently in terms of moving my work away from some of the like just lush brushstrokes of the Eisner line and going into more something a little grittier. I think it has to do with audiences, what the audience wants. And we have this kind of thing every now and then, right? Like a few years ago, we had the Sean Murphy, Matteo Scalera boom of everyone drawing like these two guys, or everyone trying to incorporate their techniques into their style. And I think now we have the Daniel Warren Johnson, James Herron boom, where it's this manga influenced work, heavy rendering, heavy line work. That seems to be the part in the thing of interest. The difference is like those guys understand what they're doing, and I think a lot of people just don't understand where the line work where it's coming from, or what they're actually trying to achieve, what the gritty nature effects are actually contributing to the page, because those guys specifically are thinking in black and white, and I think a lot of people who are making comics today think in color because everything's in color. So that, I think your problem is no, but everyone's thinking in color, and then they're over rendering, thinking the colorist is going to figure that out, and that's not a good place to be. I end up coloring my stuff, my own stuff, and in doing so, I figured out like where to pare down and where to beef up, because very quickly the intense line work can get really muddy once it's printed. I mean, once it's shrunk down and printed, that's the problem with that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And
go ahead. No, go. You.
What was I going to say? Oh, no, I was going to say, yeah, and in types of, like laying out a page, I like the approach of thinking of like, negative spaces.
Yeah.
And, what's not there speaks more than what's there. So.
Yeah. I mean, going back to Eisner, right? Just draw a lamppost, you're outside. So that's,
right.
A couple debris. It's blowing. It's windy. Here's a lamppost. We're outside. Everything can be lit by one source. I have a theater background, and one of the things that I guess I relate to Eisner on is his father was a set designer during the Depression, and that's kind of where Eisner gets his one lamppost, because that's all you can afford, right? Some just little landmarks that can decorate a scene without having to fully render the entire scene. And so I try to bring that into my own work all the time. I am of the belief that comics are more like theater than they are like film, but I think that is slowly dying as a concept. But that's. But I'm a theater guy, so I don't really know.
We need to bring that back.
I'm trying. Yeah,
you're talking to 2 out of the 3 of us are theater people.
Great.
So you're talking to a crowd that gets it.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, John actually does musical work for theater all the time, and Chris is a former theater guy. So
yeah, lovely.
Yeah. And not that I disagree with any of that. I totally agree with you. I never really got into theater.
Yeah.
But yeah. So like I said, we showed a little bit of the Baboon. You did a book with our good friend Nick Cagnetti, the Baboon and Pink Lemonade Jamboree. This is a while back, wasn't it?
This was our COVID book.
Yes, that was the COVID book. That's right.
Yes, both Nick and I were reading a bunch of Savage Dragon, and
oh Lord,
and we individually reading a bunch of Savage Dragon and some old Image stuff, and wanted to bring that kind of energy to the world, back to the world. Guys
so like
having books that just cross over.
Maybe specifically like the Savage Dragon Megaton Man type.
Savage Dragon Megaton Man, or Savage Dragon Ninja Turtles, Savage
Yeah.
Dragon Spawn. Like it just every issue for a good like 6 or 7 issues of Savage Dragon is just a crossover book. And
Mhm.
it just, I don't know, it fleshes out the world. It kind of makes, I mean, what they were trying to do at Image was make it a shared universe
Right.
thing. Nick and I were just like, people used to do this all the time. He's a big Mike Allred fan, so the Boogaloo, the Superman Madman Boogaloo, and Madman and Hellboy crossing over, like that kind of stuff is very near and dear to his heart. So yeah, we were just like, hey, we can do this.
And it helped when everybody was working in one studio, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. They weren't though, because where is Nick now?
He's in Arizona.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're down in Georgia. So it's like, of course, we have the luxury of the internet, but.
Yeah. Well, we made a Google Doc and just wrote the dialogue in real time to each other. So I wrote all of the Baboon's dialogue, and he wrote all of Pink Lemonade's dialogue. And we just went back and forth one day and just wrote the script. Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, that sounds like a blast.
Yeah.
Now of course,
go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, so reading through SPAKOW, like first of all, especially in the Baboon, I love your line art. It's just
Thanks.
I felt like you had like kind of an animation background as well, because you've got the bounce and the squish. I mean, you've got it. I mean, your characters are so full of life.
Oh, thank you.
It's really is fantastic.
Thanks. I have no animation training. I have no training really. But that's a lot of during that time when I was doing the daily strips. So those are a collection of daily strips that I did for the last year and a half. That just wrapped up at the end of last year. And one of the things I wanted to push with that was kind of the squash and stretch and making it feel a little more alive. Just little techniques, looking at different artists and different things and trying to pull that stuff in. I'm a really big fan. There's a guy, Terry Martin, I think he's French. Man, that guy, I think he might be my favorite cartoonist living. Like it's so interesting. And he's done some Mickey Mouse stuff, but he does a lot of Western things. Had a sci-fi book with Metter Allant come out recently. So it's really, I don't know. There's something about the way he constructs a figure that really tickles the back of my brain. So trying to bring a little bit more of that energy into my own work.
Okay, well, since Chris brought it up, let's look at this real quick. SPAKOW number 1. It is $12 from his Bowtie Press brand. Creator editor Jamie Jones, Anthology Pulp Action Magazine, 36 pages in color. I would say age range 10 to 12 and up. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's like a PG-13, I guess. That's the.
Mm-hmm. This was originally released in spring of 2024, and well, I'll let you read what it's about because it's basically from your own words.
Oh yeah. I got really burned out. I can just read it. Jamie got burned out doing projects for clients, as what happened for many of us creators. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I wanted to make something really fun, and I had a bunch of stuff that was around that I had been doing kind of just to save my sanity. The particular comic that I worked on before SPAKOW was a digital information technologies educational comic for the state of Florida. The textbook that I was working from was being made as I was working on it. So I had to read a 400-page textbook about basic computer skills 4 times and adapt this thing into a 64-page comic.
Wow.
And I didn't realize how burnt out I was after I finished it. It took me a full 6 months to fully recover. While I was doing that, I started the Baboon daily strips, which run in SPAKOW now at 25 strips a clip. And doing that was my only saving grace. It was like really trying to find some joy in creating things. And then I guess late or mid last year, I got really determined to make a new project, and I had a bunch of stuff sitting around. And then Wizard Cowboy came to me, and then I called my brother. I said, Wizard Cowboy, and he said, that's the best idea you've ever had. And SPAKOW was born. That's basically it, and it's saved me out of burnout. That's completely what it is.
Now, the first issue had some really well thought out commentary articles, I thought. One about nostalgia as a whole and how it both hurts and helps our art form.
Yeah.
I really thought those were really well written. So much so that I thought that your way you wrote it and the way you expressed it was on par with a lot of the higher level academic presentations that I can see. I can see you going in Comics Journal, going into the tomorrow's books like Back Issue or Comic Book Creator Magazine. I can see you writing for them on a regular basis.
Oh, thank you.
It was just that well thought out.
That is a thought that I have all the time. That is that's the constant thought and the constant kind of driving creative force behind what I'm trying to do. Whenever you're working with a time period that, like, there's a reason the Baboon has no specific time period. It's because I don't want it to feel like I'm using that time period to further my own agenda, right? I think one of the things I like about Stranger Things and also don't like about Stranger Things is that it's an 80s TV show, and it kind of is just like, hey, you remember that one thing in the 80s, and you can kind of montage feelings out of that. And I didn't want to do that. So I wanted to create something, and I want to, I guess, down the line, my entire life, I want to create something that feels like it is in conversation with past works. But
yet it's timeless.
But it's timeless, right? Like, there's a great value in going back and reading old Buzz Sawyer stuff, even though that is so definitively a World War II comic. It still has this kind of quality, and you can find the tropes in Terry and the Pirates and the stuff that I read old pulp comics all the time and strips mostly, and finding those things and distilling what makes those stories work, I think is kind of the key. I think a lot of superhero comics fall into this trap nowadays where it's not only that you have to have read certain things, but like, I was just talking about this with a buddy of mine earlier. I think All-Star Superman's great. All-Star Superman is not a good first Superman comic, right? It's so steeped in kind of the history of the character. Yeah, and I think almost to its detriment. I love that book, but it's also there as feeling and as nostalgia, and that's a good reason. It's a good reason to do a book, but it's not the reason I want to do a book, right? I want to look at the tropes and then update them for modern audiences. And we're still performing Shakespeare. Back to the theater side of things, we're still performing Shakespeare. We're still finding new ways and valuable lessons to be learned from those stories without it feeling or needing to feel like it's this archaic thing.
Yeah. And boy, could that man slip in a joke.
Oh, yeah. There's an innuendo every page. Yeah,
that man could slip in a joke like nobody's business.
I love the cover.
Thank you.
I am a little bit confused. I won't say confused. I'm just wondering, why did you do the striping the way it shows here?
Oh, I don't know. I liked it. Okay. There was that is just again, trying to play with tropes, trying to play with feelings, and kind of the vibe and feel of it.
Okay.
That was
the
it.
only thing I didn't like was how the hat covered up the logo for the very first issue.
I agree with you. I was limited to the size of the book, but at the same time,
I mean, it doesn't. You can
mind.
still read it. You can still read it.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. You know, it's not something that was like, oh, this just sucks. You know?
Yeah.
It's not a deal breaker. No.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's not a deal breaker.
Right now, I can tell you, as a guy who goes to conventions and has that thing out, nobody cares about the name about the book. And I think that's the thing with issue 1 specifically, is the fact that Wizard Cowboy is right there. That's the thing that sells it.
Yep. I agree.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares about the names of any other book in the magazine.
Well, I care because I love SPAKOW. I mean, come on, who doesn't love a good onomatopoeia? I mean,
it's the best one too. I was surprised it wasn't taken. I was.
That's right up there with the butta 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 of the machine gun.
Listen, I'm a big butta 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 guy.
Gotta love it. So I have a couple questions, if I may, Lewis.
Always.
Okay. So first of all, I gotta know, how did you come? Why the baboon?
This is a good question. I wanted to do a book that I was working at a comic shop when I came up with the idea, and it was late New 52 DC era of characters, or maybe right when Batman started to become depressed, and Catwoman was overly sexualized, and all of the characters that were they're kids characters at their core, right? Like they're used for morality tales, and that's what they are. And I wanted to make a character that
was that the 90s?
No, this is my era. Like, this is.
Like, I mean, just you're saying Batman's depressed, Catwoman's over-sexualized. I'm like, Jim Ballard over-sexualized Catwoman. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. Well, we never got away from it. That's what we're really trying to say is it's been the same problem since '86. But I wanted to make a character that fit within the. This is for adults, but also for children. It's appropriate for children. It's fun for adults. It's entertaining for adults. I didn't want to make a character that there weren't fart jokes for kids, right? And there's not sexual innuendos for adults. It's just kind of like down the line, you should be able to enjoy this, both parties. Kind of, you get the Flintstones, you get Space Ghost, you get the Herculoids, all of that stuff feels very what I was trying to go for. I remember watching those shows with my dad and enjoying it for the same reasons, and that's what I was trying to do with the baboon. I drew the character, I drew the mask, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this Spirit-esque action adventure hero. I love superheroes. I do not want to write a superhero comic. I like people being people. I'm a Star Trek guy over Star Wars for that reason. Like a guy punching a guy without powers.
Right.
And that was what the baboon was. The name came because I couldn't come up with a name, and looked at my brother and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to call this guy. I want to do this book. And I had written a lot of the story, just didn't have a name. And he went, oh, just call him the baboon. And I went, oh, okay, cool. And then that comes out of then you get the Green Hornet. What's the Green Hornet? He's just a guy calling himself the Green Hornet. You get a bunch of those old pulp heroes are named after animals, and then they're just kind of guys running around in suits. Batman is just a guy in a suit. He doesn't have bat powers. Yeah, and I think that was kind of the big push for him just being the baboon. In the first book, he kicks off a shoe and uses his feet to unlock these locks. He picks up a key and unlocks it with his feet, and That's all the only thing that he's ever done that has any semblance of of his feet being able to be powerful in any way.
I thought he grabbed something with his foot and threw it once.
Probably.
Yeah.
I can grab stuff with my feet though, and I'm just a guy. So
well, I would very much like to see the baboon become a master of the martial art flung poo.
There it is, and this very much could be.
And yeah, the little jokes in there are fantastic. Like the part where they're like, "Oh, there's no one here." He kicks the desk and bam, a ninja flies out. Like that's fantastic. I love this.
That was one of my favorite parts, actually.
Oh, thank you.
Let's get John in here because John hasn't spoken hardly.
Well, first of all, I say here's to brothers whom you can bounce ideas off of.
This is This is it's the only way I have a career in this world.
Yeah. Good. And sorry I'm late. I'm literally like in the middle of the second book, so I just finished reading before I came on, and I got to say, well done, sir. Well done, indeed. And like Lewis says, I like your articles as well. I mean, I like everything. It's just really, really fun, and I'm having a good time reading it.
Thank you. Yeah, that's kind of the big push for me is just for it to be fun. I'm not trying to do anything bigger than having a space to express, even some kind of heady thoughts, right, with the nostalgia thing, and just be like, oh, this is a thing I'm talking about. I've spent so much of my life and so much of my career trying to say the right thing at the right time, and my buddy of mine, Matt Sardo, who runs Indie Comics Creator Con in Connecticut, he was like, no, just do, like, can you just say some weird Jamie thing that you say to me when we're just talking, and I was like, okay, cool. Like I guess that's who I should be.
Weird Jamie? I can be weird Jamie.
Some weird like hot take that I have about the comics industry, and which is a lot of hot takes, but I never voice them because it's, you work in the world and you work in that industry, but
yeah, you don't want to.
I mean, here it's
Have you watched this channel lately, Jim? You need to watch. You need to go watch my channel again, and you know me. I
know you. Yes, it's not about your image; it's about my image.
And I'll also say, of course, I didn't know of your theater background while I was reading, but now that I hear you say that, it makes sense, because I think especially in the Baboon comics, they're very well staged.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Fight scenes are very important to me. Making sure things, every action has a reaction, and especially with the strip format, it's so those things are drawn just on there. Every column is just one strip. That's kind of
all right
how I drew them, and I posted them once a day on my Substack. And that was how I published it for the first time, was just throwing it up, doing something for fun, and putting up on Substack. And now here we are, and I've got 260 daily strips that just a stack of paper sitting on my desk that I don't know what to do with, but it looks cool.
You need to make like the wide Garfield width one.
That is the plan. The plan with the Baboon is, and I'm waiting to see how things printing overseas shakes out in the next couple of months. This is another reason why I moved over to the magazine format, because it's easy and it's quick and it's cheap to get books printed. But the plan is, there's a great Fantagraphics put out this great book called Zombie Coffee, which is a Mickey Mouse comic, and it's printed like that, with wide format, but comes in a slipcase with all the pagination of the title, so you can house it vertical on your shelf. And I was like, this is how I will do the Baboon daily strip collection when that book comes out, so it will match the rest of the books.
Okay.
Very cool.
Interesting.
Speaking of your theater background, what exactly is your theater background? Were you have you acted a lot, or is it more behind the scenes, or what?
So I was a professional actor in Tampa for 10 years. I did a bunch of shows. But if you're working in theater, you are also teaching in theater, and you are also doing whatever kind of odd jobs. I taught a lot of children acting. I love third grade, so I got to teach third grade a lot, which was fun. And then I also was a set painter. So that was also my main gig. So I was painting sets. I worked at the children's theater in Tampa, and then, which was luckily in the same building as the adult theater, and so I could do that during the day and then walk over and do rehearsals at night. And that was the job for a long time.
Very, very cool.
I'm mostly a musical director myself, so
Right.
so believe me, I understand about the teaching part, because that's at least half of your job as musical director is teacher,
Yes.
and teaching people from every walk of life. Some who know how to read music, some who've never read a note in their life, and everybody in between. So
yeah,
I definitely feel you on that one.
it's the best. I miss teaching a lot. That's one of the things that I've been talking with people about, is maybe going back and teaching some a little bit. Now I have articles that prove that I can have a thought about things. So maybe that helps.
Like I said, I'm very surprised that they don't have you at SCAD. But then again, they might, I don't know what your educational degrees are. They were very snooty about having your master's and all this other stuff. And
yeah, I do not have a master's. I have a degree in writing. So that's a thing. I don't know how useful that degree is. It served me well, but I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I have a degree in computer animation. That and $275 will get you a cup of coffee. So
yeah.
Now you mentioned your good friend Matt Sardo, who you co-created Monkeys Fighting Robots with.
Yes. Yeah. We did the Tales of MFR we did a Sunday strip for that book, and that was a thing we did on the Monkeys Fighting Robots website for 3 years, I think 3 or 4 years. We ended up doing 104 strips.
Yeah,
which is wild to me. Like, we blinked one day and we're like, oh, we're done. It's crazy. Just recently we were talking about, we've known each other for over a decade now, and that's also wild. But he and I are he runs the Indie Comics Creator Con in New Haven, Connecticut, and which I am now program director for. So I get to hang out with Matt all the time. We also have a podcast where we interview guests of the show on that.
And we're gonna go to that page real quick here.
All right.
This is the Indie Creators Comic Con. It takes place in a little less than 2 weeks. It's a one-day show at Southern Connecticut State University. It says it's produced by Comic Art Fans, which is a website where you can look at all the original artworks of the artists that people post, that they bought the original pages, whether sketches or commissions or.
It's an auction house too, right?
There's different auction houses that go with it. Yes,
they are starting to do more of that in-house. The auction houses, so they're working with auction houses and auction places to do that through them. I know this because I was also at OAX, which is their big show, the Original Art Expo, and got to really talk to everybody and figure out like, all right, you bought us. What are we doing here? What are we doing with the IC3 and OAX and all of that stuff? But
yeah, and it's like 175 creators, and you got like mostly indie people.
Well, that is in the name.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, when I say that, I mean there's indie, and then there's like real indie. If you know what I'm saying?
Who the hell are you, indie?
This is a conversation that I have been having with Matt and really anybody who will listen, which is like, what are we defining independent as? What makes you an independent creator? Matt's whole thing is, do you have health insurance? If you don't, you're independent. So that is that's his litmus test.
That's fantastic.
I don't know about that one, but okay.
That is fantastic. I love
it. I don't know how. Honestly, I don't know how I feel about the moniker of independent when it comes to the way we talk about comics. This might be an article in SPAKOW coming up after this convention, but the indie comics side still seems to have a tinge of the amateur, or a tinge of the not good enough world, which I find so odd, because we have, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a self-published book. Cerebus was a self-published book. All of these books that came out, and that kind of defining Bone was a self-published book for a really long time, right? These things have left the kind of independent world and gone into the mainstream. What are like the most popular things in the mainstream have started off as independent works. So I would like to try to transition this into the way we talk about video games. I'm very interested in the independent video game world. A game came out this past year, Balatro, and it's great. It was nominated for Game of the Year. It won Independent Game of the Year, but it was nominated for Game of the Year. For the first time, we had a game that was independent going into that world. So I think there's a testament to the people who are coming to the convention. We've got a lot of really strong creators who just so happen to be self-publishing. Some are even binding, right? Like Jim Ruggs still staples and trims his own books to come to conventions. I staple and trim my own books. That's how SPAKOW is working right now. So,
yeah. But it's interesting though. I mean, you got Tim Jones, you got Matty Kane. That people don't know who Matty is even hardly.
Yeah, but he's blowing up, man. He's I love him. He's a dear friend of mine, and we've recently, I did an 8-pager for him, and he did an 8-pager for SPAKOW 2. My first guest artist was Matty.
And that was a nice little interview y'all did in number 2 as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, he is super fun. He's super energetic, and I think I wrote him questions, and he rewrote my questions so his answers sounded better, and then I rewrote those. I rewrote my questions to make his answers sound better. So, he's great.
Yeah, but we're seeing a lot of people here that, it's just not. You go to a regular Comic-Con, and these people aren't anywhere to be seen.
Right, and if they are, they're buried next to the person crocheting, right? Like, and so it's a real heavy push for the independent comics creator. When you apply, you have to show that you have a book, or you have to have something. It can be a mini comic, but you have to have a comic. So that's kind of the baseline entry for the show. And we filled up. We put out. We're like, hey, we're taking exceptions applications, and we had over 300 applications. People coming from all over. We've got Canadian people this year. We've got people flying in from the West. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of fun. We have we'll have a big drink and draw Friday night before the show, and then try to solve some problem in the comic book industry.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you guys will be talking about the problems with the distribution. Is going to be like one of the key things that's going to be talked
That'll
about.
be. I feel like that's the problem all over the place. Is problem with distribution. That's a big thing on my kind of agenda, is figuring out what to do. We have comic shop owners coming into the show. There is one of the panels this year is pitching to comic shops with Lee Heidel, who is my local comic shop guy in Savannah.
Right, I know who he is.
He runs an artist in residence program over here, and it's been really, he's a big proponent of having comics on the shelf of local people, of independent creators. Whenever he goes to a show, he brings back a bunch of independent comics from all over, and that's kind of, so he's going to be doing that talk, and he's got some things on the works and in the works about distribution. How are we going to do this? He's talking to a bunch of comics people all over the country about that kind of stuff. So who knows? Maybe
like I said, I know who he is.
yeah.
That's the thing. We've got a lot of people, because for like the last 30 years, we've had 12 or I know of at least 12 people who tried to form national or regional distribution.
Yeah.
But the consensus attitude of the retail community at large was, you don't carry Marvel, you don't carry DC, we don't need you.
Yeah, and I think the push is to. Yeah. I think well, we're starting to see the push, and one of the things that we've been talking about, Matt and I talk about whenever we interview people, is does the size of your book matter now? If we're moving away from the traditional, comic book thing, and we go like SPAKOW is an 8.5 by 11 magazine, right? We're going back to the magazine. Mahdi prints all of his stuff like manga size, right? And that's making the independent book boutique, or in a way, or making it stand out in a different way than just here's a superhero comic that's going to have to sit on those stands next to Batman. My book's bigger than Batman. That's kind of like it takes up more retail space than Batman does. So it's finding places. I think the first thing you have to do is build a relationship with a few creators, with a few comic shops that want to have comic or an indie section, right? You have, most comic shops have, this is the Marvel books, this is the DC books, here's the indie books, and it's like everything else gets put in the independent section. It's like, is Dark Horse independent? Is Boom independent? Is IDW independent? Or can we have a distributor that is actually putting out purely independent stuff? How that works, I don't really know yet. But I have conversations with other cartoonists and other creators on a weekly basis about this, outside of like, we'll just get on and try to hash stuff out kind of situations.
Right.
It's not. Yeah. Once Diamond was like, hey, we're filing for bankruptcy, we all went, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Yeah. How are we going to fix it?
Solving distribution is like a month-long fall down drunken draw.
Yeah. If I go gray in the next 3 weeks, you'll know why.
Well, this is before your time, but back in the 90s, I co-founded a co-op, and we released over 1,200 issues between 87 titles over 10 years. But less than 1% of our books were through comic shops.
This is another thing that we have conversations about in this same world, is where what's the comic shop look like moving forward? How can we get distribution, or how can we get our books into places that are not traditional comic book shops. That's a huge thing. That's a problem that we have in comics all over the place, right? We've kind of subjugated one of, like, it used to be great. Comic shops were in or comic books were in Kmart, right? You could go anywhere and pick up comics.
Right.
Exactly.
With the inception of the comic shop, the boutique store, it shifts all of the stuff that that were in retail stores over to the side. And I think that's, we're finally feeling the repercussions of that several years later.
Yeah.
Well, the direct market is, I think it's had a very adverse effect. Like the strictly direct market has had a very adverse effect on the comic book industry in whole. So
yes. Well, when you're talking about that sort of thing, it was my experience that we had to take each individual title and figure out what target markets to market each book to.
Sure.
I'm not going to take like Rabbit Fiends by Rick Veitch and market that to Little Granny Annie's arts and crafts store.
Yes. Yeah.
But I could take something like Monkeys Fighting Robots potentially to that. I could take something like I don't remember if you've seen Mercury Mouse by Larry Raines.
No.
Okay. Think of Mighty Mouse with a red suit and blue cape, and he's a gray mouse.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me.
That's basically what it is. So I mean, there's that I can market to schools, that I can market to daycare centers.
Right.
You have to take what your book really fits, and a lot of creators, because we've been so conditioned to go, we go to comic shop, we go to the comic shop. No, where does your book actually fit?
Yeah.
And a lot of creators just don't really know what their actual target audience is.
A lot of people don't actually know what they're doing. I think, and I love her to death. She is one of my close friends. But our recent podcast of What Is Comics, we talked to Anya Driffel, and she's great. She does a great comics. In the interview, spoiler alert for anybody watching that podcast, I say, so you're obsessed with like death of young people, like that's what all of your books are about. And she was like, is it what my books are about? I was like, oh wow, you gotta look at yourself a little bit more. But that's one of the things I find is the pitch has been lost. That elevator pitch thing has been lost, I think, to its detriment, with the mindset of it's this plus this, A plus B equals C. I'm doing C, but we've lost how to just talk about our own works and have the self-realization as to where your own works fit. Now that you mention this, I need to figure out how to get in like pediatric offices. That's like, can I get a bunch of doctors to buy my books on a subscription service? They don't have to look at it, and then it just gets sent to their offices, like Life magazine. Figure that. If I could figure that out, I think I'm golden.
That's what my co-op did. That's the kind of stuff that we sold our stuff to those places, because we went to comic shops first, and they were all snobs. We're not going to carry you because you're black and white. Black and white don't sell. We're not going to carry you because you printed 8.5 by 11. That won't sell. Yeah. We don't carry this because of that. It's like, really? And we would literally come to your store, in person. Yeah. We scheduled ahead of time to come to your store and give you our time. You want to be treated as an equal business partner. We've come to you to ask you if you want to be business partners. And they won't even let us open the box to show them the product. Yeah.
I think we've changed a lot. I think comic shops have changed a lot because the buying market has changed so much, with manga being the biggest seller, right? Like you can't just sell Marvel and DC anymore. I guess you can. There's certain shops that still hold that flag firmly planted in the ground, but you can't just sell that kind of stuff because that's not what the new and emerging reader wants, right? We want to read things by the same creator from issue number 1. That's a huge appeal. I remember talking to my cousin, really, who is 10 years younger than I am, about, he was like, I really want to read Spider-Man. I just can't, I can't start at number 1. And I was like, you don't have to. You can read it at this, and this. He goes, yeah, but that's not what I'm interested in. And I went, and then he gravitates towards manga, right? Because that's, he can read all of One Piece and it's all written by the same guy. And he's got countless pages to read it in. So
well, that one of the things about that is a lot of the people that are into the manga or into YA is it is a self-contained completed series that has a finite conclusion. Whereas superhero comics, they haven't learned that the stories are supposed to come to an end. You know?
Yeah. I have mixed feelings about this as just a fan of pulp things where stories happen cyclically, and I think we've just tried to make superhero comics specifically something, because you don't see this in Image, right? Image will kill off a character and that character's dead and the story ends. We have endings to things because those are writers writing things towards an ending, right? Trying to write a story. But with Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, these characters that are kind of exist as characters in the world that they inhabit, and are should be, I think, used towards just telling morality tales to children. And that is an endless stream of, hey, you just do Batman fights this guy and he comes over some moral quandary and has to figure out, does he kill this guy or that ruins his Batman thing? And then, okay, he doesn't, and he has overcome the villain using a different part of his emotions he's not just angry all the time. He realizes that he has to be happy sometimes to kill this guy, and that's or to stop this guy, right?
Not kill this guy.
Well, and plus, I mean, for the IPs themselves, I mean, you could just replace them with a giant bag of gold, and they're not going to get rid of Superman, Batman, because that's their moneymaker.
Like, it is the export that we have, right? The story, the superhero genre is so like quintessentially American that I don't know if I necessarily want it to go away.
Well, no. We're not saying.
Need to figure out how to continue to tell stories.
But like, okay, everybody's complaining about Peter Parker not being with Mary Jane. He's with Paul, and this is all going on. And my thing is, why is MJ not with Peter? Does anybody know? He got his mind erased, or she got her mind erased during Civil War. Hey, I actually do know the reason. During Civil War, to stop everything, he revealed himself as Peter Parker and then had Doctor Strange erase everyone's memory. So nobody knew he was Peter Parker again, or nobody knew Spider-Man was Peter Parker. Nobody even realized Peter Parker was alive. And so, so then that's how they separated the two in the comic. Is that what they did? See, my thing is, you remember when Mary Jane had a miscarriage?
No, I don't. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not a big Spider-Man scholar. I just remember that as a.
Okay. Well, no. There was a point in time where she had a miscarriage, and they have never pursued having kids since. And I'm thinking the reason she left him is because he keeps wanting to be Spider-Man. You got all these other freaking Spider characters around that could do what you do now. I understood it when you were the only one who could do this, and you had the guilt with your uncle, and you wanted to do the power comes great responsibility thing, but now everybody else is doing it. I want a family. You aren't going to be there for that. I'm gone.
This is such an adult this is such an adult problem, though, and this is how we get into trouble with these characters, right?
Well, what I'm saying is
we're adding this, adding more to it than it needs to be.
Right. What I'm saying is just end their story, put them back together, let them have their family, and let the new kid, I can't think of his name, Miles Morales, be Spider-Man.
As far as I know. As far as like my knowledge grasp, the only character that successfully took on the mantle and is more beloved than the original character is Wally West. People don't care about Barry Allen because Wally West was the Flash for so long without Barry Allen being a thing. This is the only one I can think of. But they killed off Barry Allen, right? Like, that's what they did.
Yeah.
We brought him back because it's comic books, and that's the beauty of superheroes, is we can bring them back. But it was like 30 years. And I think, especially now, the fear of losing the name Peter Parker is detrimental to the comic show, the like Marvel. It's more detrimental to Marvel than the story and the tale. There's a great, I've just resaw it. It was on the special features or bonus features of the Spirit DVD. Do not recommend watching the Spirit movie, but there's a great Frank Miller interview at the end of it where he tells a story about going and killing off Elektra in his Daredevil run. And I can't remember who the editor of the book was, but he told the editor, he was like, I think I have to kill off Elektra. And the editor was like, you can't. Like, she's more popular than the main character. She's really, like, you can't kill her off. And he was like, well, I was lucky enough to be friends with Jim Shooter. So I walked into his office and I was like, hey, I need to kill Elektra. And he was like, Jim just kind of looked at me and was like, tell me the story. And it's the difference between a story company and a like perpetuating character company,
right?
I think that's really what the major problem with these the corporate comics kind of has is this ununderstanding that they are making comic books, and comic books are stories that should be told.
So can I get back to? I want to get back to SPAKOW for a minute.
Yes. Absolutely.
So I was particularly drawn to Wizard Cowboy because I'm a big fantasy guy. I still play D&D twice a month. Where did that come from?
I called my brother and said, "Hey, Wizard Cowboy," and he said, "That's the best idea you ever had." That is actually how it happened, and when you're working in pulp, which is kind of what I classify, especially SPAKOW, right? It's a pulp action magazine. When you're working in that kind of setting, you just get bored with the thing that you're doing, and you want to have another thing. In issue 3, I have a whole my article in issue 3 is idea begets idea, story begets story, and you just kind of, once you're in that mode of making stuff, you want to just make more stuff. I've only ever had good ideas when I'm working on another thing. Wizard Cowboy just seemed like it was really fun. I love playing D&D. My favorite character was a ranger who multi-classed into wizard. And so like I could fly around and shoot a bow and arrow. That's a cool guy.
That's cool.
So that's kind of, Wizard Cowboy was like, I wanted to write a Western. I like fantasy stuff. I wanted to draw giant monsters. Might as well merge the two and put it in a book.
Are there gunslingers in the Wizard Cowboy world?
I mean, he's got a wand gun.
That's what I'm saying.
In issue 3, my big thing, this is the big reveal for Wizard Cowboy, is this, and potentially I'll write it, and potentially it will be an actual like short story in the book. Because that's something I want to continue to do in SPAKOW moving forward, is actually like write stories, have some prose work. But there was like this big wizard war that happened, and wizards attain their power from the length of their beard. And the titular wizard cowboy, had a really, really long beard, and the other wizards got him and shaved it off, magically shaved it off. So he's only got the mustache now. So he's a pretty low level wizard, but he still has some magics. And he's like got all of the knowledge of being a good, phenomenal wizard, but his beard has been magically shaved.
So a little bit of Samson going on there.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Everything's biblical. That's the other thing. It's like, why try to fight?
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, everything else aside, the Bible has some great narratives.
This is a conversation I was having earlier today with a buddy of mine. It was like, oh, hey, can we just make a comic and use this story?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. So another question. So the pistol bottle rocket.
Yes.
I was reading that. I really enjoyed that one as well. It seems like that was drawn, in my opinion, from Astro Boy. Was that a little bit of influence there? Or
my favorite genre of anything is Little Boy Robot. That's just Astro Boy, Mega Man, Big Guy and Rusty. Like it is. Yeah. I wear my influences on my sleeve. I don't try to hide it. It's I feel like if you're honest about what you're pulling from, right? Like I pull from Terry and the Pirates. The Jamie's shirt, the sidekick he wears the long sleeve striped shirt, which is Terry's shirt from Terry and the Pirates. Right. I don't try to hide anything, but hopefully I have a voice of my own that kind of cuts through any of that stuff to to make it seem at least semi-original.
I think so much of your stuff is so classic that younger audiences haven't discovered. So there's that even though you are influenced by these things, they're discovering these things through you and then going back to see what your influences were.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're going back to see what the influences are. Yeah, that's a big thing for me.
Whereas, the three of us are old enough that we know what it is and we just go, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
We like this. This is we remember this,
It's picking the right thing too, right? Like that's an element. It's like you just want to do Superman. No, I mean in issue 3, there's the ill-fated darling, which is me just blatantly wanting to do a Silver Age weirdo book. I'm a huge Metal Men fan. I'm a huge Metamorpho fan. I love Adam Strange. Like those Silver Age books, the early Doctor Doom books are so weird. And I was like, I want to do that. How can I do that? And then I started retroactively thinking about the character. And actually my sticking point to that was, what can I make that feels like it's a 70s book enough that some British guy 20 years, 30 years later can bastardize and make adult.
That's fantastic.
And that was my whole intent with it. I was like, okay, don't seed. Really, I was working really hard to seed things that I felt like you could do something mature with this idea. But that was, and I was like, okay, that's all now that's in the brain. It's all in the blender. And now just go and only read Metamorpho for 5 days, right? Like that's, do something really pure.
So with SPAKOW, were you at all worried about or adverse to the fact that anthology books don't necessarily do too well?
Yeah. What's crazy is SPAKOW is the best thing I've ever done. I think that's like, just from a sales perspective, I've done, I think, 3 reprints of issue 1, which is crazy. It actually works. One of the things that I I think anthologies books don't work because they're inconsistent, and doing a book by yourself kind of makes it a little more consistent, and especially from the indie world, from the self-publishing world, you'll get a lot of anthology books are just like really big group projects that's like, here's this massive tome, read through all of these books or read through all of these stories. The theme is space opera, and you are everyone has to be a musical space guy, and it's like, okay, is that theme fun enough to carry me as a reader through 200 pages of 1 to 3 page stories with several crazy different artists? I think that's the biggest problem with anthology books today, is they're just too big. SPAKOW now, so issue 3 moving forward, is 48 pages and kind of quick and digestible enough, I think, to be an anthology book. And it has solo adventures, one and done stories that are 15 to 20 pages, right? Eight being the smallest, but 20 pages being the longest. And I think that helps. People feel like they're getting they're invested in the character, and then they get the full arc. I was speaking of back to Madi, when I asked him to be guest art for issue 2, I wanted to do, the editor of the Baboon books calls the extended Baboon verse, the Babooniverse. It's the extended world that these stories and characters kind of inhabit. And I wanted to do more Babooniverse stories. I hate the name, but it works. Like, people understand what I'm talking about. And I was like, well, I could draw all these things, or I could get my friends to draw them. And that seemed to be really good. When I was having a conversation with Madi early on, he was like, oh, dude, SPAKOW's great. It's like independent mad. That's what you're doing. And I was like, no, I'm like, dude, I'm doing like 8-Ball, and I'm doing Hate, and I'm doing like the cool stuff that's like one and done, one guy thing. And he was like, no, you don't realize it yet, but you're doing like Mad Magazine. So with
you're kind of transfusing the two.
Yeah. So what I ended up, in my research of like anthology books and kind of stuff, it's Zap. It's Pulp Action Zap. Zap starts as a Robert Crumb book for 2 issues. He does all of it for 2 issues, and then he goes, "This is miserable. I am going to kill myself physically if I continue to do this book by myself, and it's never going to come out on time, and all these things." So by issue 3, he brings in a bunch of people that become like the staples of the underground Zap world. So now for me, I get to play around and introduce some of my friends who are doing interesting works and put it in if it fits the pulp action genre. So now, one of the beauties of anthology books is multiple people selling your book for you, having some marketing. And so like issue 3 has Mark Jackson, who's a British guy, did the back cover for it. The back cover is now going to be given to different cartoonists, so they can just do whatever they want. And as long as SPAKOW is on it, that's great. I like painting the covers, so I will continue to paint the front covers. But and then also with issue 4, I guess this is exclusive. This is an announcement. Steve Steglin, who's a cartoonist in Charleston, he's an editorial cartoonist in Charleston.
An award-winning.
Oh yes, an award-winning editorial cartoonist.
Major awards. I mean, that boy he's earned his chops.
He's amazing. He has had this book called Rip Raygun for years that I have been trying to be like, Steve, when is this thing coming out?
Yep.
What are you going to do? And he was a part of a science fiction anthology that he was doing the book for. And that projects like that kind of fall through all the time. And he just emailed me and was like, hey, do you want it? Like, I've got 14 pages of it done. Here you go. And I went, great. So Steve officially is going to be run in Rip Raygun will be in SPAKOW
That's
moving
fantastic.
forward. Yeah. So it's finally going to be in print, which is crazy.
I
Well,
find
seriously, that's awesome, dude. That's
Yeah,
great.
moving forward, that's what I want to be able to do, and have, have the featured artist who is doing the Babooniverse story, do an interview with them. Anthony Barbera is in issue 3, and he's a young guy. He just graduated from SCAD, and he likes biplanes. So I was like, "Hey, man, you wanna you wanna draw some planes and do some stuff?" So it's fun, like, to be able to give people some work. Issue 3 has Elliot Owen in it. He wrote the Wizard Cowboy story. He's a short story, and he's writing his first novel right now. And we've become friends, and we talk about writing all the time. And one day I was just like, "Hey, you want to write a Wizard Cowboy story?" And if you saw this man, you would know why I asked him to write a Wizard Cowboy story.
I think I know who you mean.
He looks like Wizard Cowboy. So he's a really great guy, and wrote the story, and I edited it and figured out how to fit it in 10 pages because he wrote me a full short story because that's what he was like, learning comics, and he's trying to figure it out. So yeah, it's like his first comics work is published in SPAKOW now too.
That's
so it's
cool.
It's bringing in friends, bringing in people that I want to show off, who might not have the voice. And I don't know if I am the guy to be like, I have a voice in this, but I have at least some kind of, like, I have a thing that I can show. I have a thing that I can print and people are reading. So
Yeah.
But
exactly.
and you have managed with SPAKOW to keep the quality consistent, because that's one of the problems that I have with anthologies. Like, what company was it, Lewis, that they're trying to bring back, like Erie and stuff like that?
That's Oni.
Yeah, and the quality is so just all over the place.
Yeah,
like I just lost interest in it.
Yeah, that's a thing with me and being able to kind of like have some sort of it is Jamie Jones's SPAKOW, right? So it is like filtered through my lens. The way that I'm writing all of the Babooniverse stories, I'm doing it Harvey Kurtzman style, so I'm giving them layouts so it still kind of feels like my storytelling vibe. I'm like, just go crazy, do whatever you want, but also like kind of follow these beats, because this is, I've been so steeped in the pulp 8-pager for so long now that it's like if I can kind of guide certain people over to that world a little bit and kind of ease them into it. Marty said on the podcast that I do, he was like, I was like, I didn't know if I was supposed to be offended when you handed me thumbnails, because like I'm thumbnailing out my own books. He's like, and then immediately I just like put myself in the mindset of like, no, I'm working, I'm in the 40s, and I'm drawing this book, and Mr. Jones just handed me the script, and here it is, and I just got to draw it. So it's a good way to be like, you're a good artist. Let's get your storytelling to be consistent with the rest of the book.
Sure. Yeah. That is one thing that a lot of artists kind of, their hackles get raised a little bit, I guess, sometimes. You're lucky that yes, you're working with friends, but you're also working with people. You're not going to hand that over to somebody who's got 20 years experience, most likely. Their ego is going to get in the way.
Yeah. I'm trying to get Bart Sears to do one because he's a friend and was my mentor. Like, he taught me how to draw comics, and I was like, I'll throw you. Listen, Bart.
Really, Bart? Okay.
I'll just give you script, man.
That's an interesting influence, mentor. I didn't.
I look nothing like him. There's a few of us guys who Bart every now and then, outside of working at the Kubrick School, gets like a wild hair, and it's just like, I'll teach you how to make comics. And there's a few of us, Marlon Shoup, Andy Smith. I get to be the baby brother in that situation, and I'm like, Andy looks like he's trying to be dad. Marlon's got a little bit of the cartoony thing, and he's doing some stuff, and I'm just like, cartoons. Let's go as far away as I can possibly go. But
yeah, I mean, it's interesting though, because your stuff, I was thinking this weekend, if I can finish the stuff I got to get done, I was going to actually do a baboon this weekend.
Ooh,
on the live draw. I don't know
that'd be
yet.
fun.
Yeah, I haven't done one, and I know I did Nick's, but I did, Pink Lemonade on the show, but I didn't do Baboon, and I was like, I really do need to do that for.
That'd be fun. Listen, we'll run it in SPAKOW. This is
yeah. So it's like we'll have to figure out that logistics of that over the week, I guess. But when we do things like this, when I've pitched my stuff and I've done the same thing with the layouts, they're like, why don't you just draw it yourself? For one thing, I haven't got time. I got so many things going,
Yeah.
It's like, I wish I could do it as fast as you, to do a daily strip, and do the things. But you've got a very open style that affords you that luxury too.
It is a style built around the kind of like the grind of the strip. I think I thrive in strips, and I'm kind of forced into doing magazine stuff because that's what people are seeing, and that's what people are buying at comic shops. If I had just a collection of daily strips and the daily strips was funding my life, I would just do daily strips. I could probably do like 2 strips a week.
So you've never had strips in a newspaper, or have you?
No.
Okay.
No, but that's the dream, right? That's the kind of the mindset of doing a strip. I read strips constantly, but I also read all of there's the great Mississippi Press, Mississippi University puts out a bunch of books called the Conversations books, and those are treasure troves of just how to actually get comic strips done. And there's one, and I took it to heart. I thought it's this is how you make this. E.C. Seeger of Popeye used to have an assistant, and the assistant was being interviewed once in some weird thing. Maybe it was in an introduction of a Popeye book, and he said, I was E.C. Seeger's assistant. I did nothing for him, but I would go fishing with him every Monday at 4:00 in the morning, and we would go fishing, and he would just start telling me stories about Popeye and what the rest of the week was going to be. So it's I went, okay, this is how you make comics. This is how you do daily strips. You only focus on the week that you're trying to make, and then you leave on a cliffhanger, and then you go into doing the rest of the, everyone goes, what happens next week? And they want to continue the strip. Milton Caniff famously did all of his cliffhangers on Wednesday because he was doing 7 days a week. So he would build in cliffhangers on Wednesday and on Sunday. So he would be like, well, I don't want people to get uninterested in the storyline for Sunday, because it was 7 days. So he would go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, cliffhanger, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sunday's big broadsheet. Cliffhanger on Sunday, go into Monday, do the same thing again. It's all for strip stuff. It's writing to the cliffhanger, which is fun. Which is
John's tired.
Yes, I am. Well, I also stayed up later than I should have writing my reviews for Thursday too, but I had to get them done last night.
Yeah, go ahead and
you can bow out, man.
You can bow out. It's okay.
All right, Jamie, it was nice to meet you, and congratulations on the. And it's a great comic.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Yeah, I was like, is he falling asleep over
there? Yeah, he's been sleeping for a while. But
Yeah.
you mentioned getting into pediatrics offices. I could very much see SPAKOW being like the highlights.
Yeah, that's like, wouldn't that be the dream? That's
Mhm.
this conversation, if it's done nothing, has got that spark in me to go figure out how to
Yeah.
solicit that.
Well,
But
Well,
you're
what's needed
fantastic, man.
too.
I could literally, I could talk to you for hours. So
Yeah.
you're
Well,
fantastic.
what we need is we need you and Rug and Sardo and Spicoli.
Spicoli.
I say that on accident. You know who I meant, Scioli. Tom.
Great faux pas.
We need to form a coalition like the co-op I had in the 90s. And what we need to be able to do is have little hubs of our own when we market each other's books where we live throughout the country.
Yeah.
And we had 5 major ones from 92 to 2003. I handled the one in Nevada. I co-founded the one in Michigan because we were actually spun out of a college student group out at Central Michigan University. And what we did was you always go to your comic shops first because they're there. But when they say no, and a lot of the time they will, what you do is you go, where's the next closest business to that comic shop? Whether it's a record store, a tattoo parlor, laundromat, the daycare centers, all these different places, and you explain to them that the comic shop doesn't want to support their local guys because they weren't supporting us as local creators. And this is where our target audiences are. Is this something that you guys would feel comfortable, having in your business and selling back to, making them some profit as well?
yeah,
And like the schools, I always said it where like you want to be a teacher, you want to go teach the kids how to make the comics. Then you have a little event where you're promoting all your comics, but you make the little kids make the little mini comics.
yeah,
And all the money goes back to the art department at the school. This is the things that we used to do back then.
yeah.
And it works, but it's a very time-demanding process. And you're going to face rejection a lot.
I was an actor. This the rejection's the thing I don't. And I've also I've been pitching books for years.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why SPAKOW exists, one of the reasons why the BABOON exists, is just because I was pitching and soliciting editors and doing. I think I did over 300, 400 pages of work for editors to be like test pages stuff, and you do that enough, and then you go, all right, well, I guess I'm going to make my own thing because at least I can make some money from it. And
artists and actors, like, rejection is just part and parcel of
it's just what it is. Yeah.
You're just like it's so much you just like
it doesn't it phases you one in every 100 times, and that's about what it is. But it's just I don't know, there's a certain belligerence to making stuff and putting things out there that comes along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that was one of the things I learned. I mean, it was like, okay, you don't want to take my stuff, I'll go right next door and sell. Yeah. Let me go ahead and stop this screen real quick and find it so I can share it again, because you haven't seen this from me and Chris. Do you remember my character Spacey?
I do not. I apologize. Many apologies.
No. There's nothing for you to apologize for. I mean, it's just a matter of me finding it now. Because I got so many folders with so much stuff in it.
Well, you can always just grab it off the wall.
I'm not grabbing it off the wall, dude. Let's see.
So while he's looking for that, so I was curious about Paul Author.
Yes.
He has, in the 3rd issue, he has his own little backstory. Was he always a separate character, or was he just spin-off from the
He was
Baboon?
a spin-off from the Baboon. Yeah. Originally, Piston Bottle Rocket was also a spin-off from the Baboon.
Okay.
In a future book that has been plotted and written and just not had time to draw. But that's most Lorenzo Colt is the first mini comic I ever made was a Baboon mini comic where he was fighting vampires with this occult magician, and it was Lorenzo Colt. And so much of it is just, I don't think about it inhabiting the same world, but it just kind of happens that way.
Right.
And Paul is one of those characters that came into existence, and I liked him enough that I wanted to do more stuff with him. And when I was thinking about doing stuff with Anthony, it just kind of worked. I was like, hey, I wanted him to draw planes because he likes drawing planes, and I wanted him to draw old ladies flying those planes. And then you try to figure out who's the center of that story, or who's telling that story. And Paul was kind of the obvious choice when you just go down the list of characters that you have.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Well, this is Spacey. Do you remember? Now, do you remember him at all?
Yes. This looks familiar to me.
Okay. Yeah. This was the book, one of the books I was doing back in the 90s, only I did it in black and white. And people ask me to bring him back all the time. And it's like, do I really want to?
Yep.
But, for some reason, I just decided, I need to at least do something with him. I was trying to get someone else to do it where I could write it and they can do the thumbnails like you were saying, and then have them pencil it. But that hasn't happened yet. But this is Chris's colors over it. And hopefully we'll get something later this year or early next year with that character revisited. But
Lewis and I met because I did the animation for his opening sequence.
Yeah, that was that was a mess. Not you, the people before you. We're not going to go into that. It took me almost 2 years to get the animation done.
Wow.
Because the people were just dragging their feet, and then they delivered something that was not even 5% as good as what you saw.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what in the hell? Yeah, I was just, no. It took them 8 months to deliver something that was less than 5% of the quality of what him and I did in 2 weeks.
Yeah. This is why you do things yourself. This is why I end up doing everything myself. It's a very new thing for me to have friends do other things, even just friends, right? Like people that I trust creatively. People that I've seen
friends before.
It's wild. The having the trust in friends who are also making things to do stuff, because I have several friends in comics, people that I would never bother to do stuff with, but they are constantly. I'm like, all right, do I trust you and I love you as a friend. Do I trust you and love you as a creator of a thing? I don't know yet, and that's often where
I think you learned. I mean, you and Nick got along famously.
That was so lucky. That was that just happened. The thing with me and Nick was wild, and I think we were just both bored at the time. And I found him right in his little slipstream of availability, and that was miraculous. Also, maybe the best guy who's ever colored me. That book is pretty. And I don't. That's a big trust thing for me, is people coloring my work now after years and years and years of doing it now. But having trusting Nick, I was like, well, you have to do that because I don't want to. It can be in black and white, but that seems ridiculous. So he colored it, and he had a blast. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is how much fun are we going to have making the thing? And that's kind of been my litmus test, is do we just vibe on the same frequency? I'm finding the people that I vibe with on the same frequency. It took me
Yes.
10 years, but I finally have gotten it. Yeah.
Right.
I'm finding my tribe.
And
I'm finding my tribe.
I can
Yeah.
completely understand the burnout that you had. I find that myself. Like, it's like you'd rather like stick a needle through your eye than draw something or color something.
Yeah.
That's
And then it's just finding the thing that you want to do, and then
it's not even just finding a thing that you want to do. I mean, yes, there's one of the reasons you guys don't see a lot of work from me is because I am in that depressive mode. Yeah, I want to do this, but when I get it done, is anybody going to care that I did it? And that can be stifling very, very quickly.
Yeah, that's been a big thing for me in this last year, was just like, why am I even doing this? It's crazy because I was like, I was continuing to do the daily strip. I was continuing to put out SPAKOW, but every time I was like, why? Like, who cares about this? And then, and one of the main reasons SPAKOW became this kind of it's become kind of my safe haven of work. And I mention it in the beginning of the letter from the editor in issue 1, where it's kind of just the thing that I started making purely for myself. And it's the first time that I ever made art for myself. Right. And I wasn't really thinking about the audience. Now it's a little different, right? Issue 3 is about to come out and issue 4 is written. So it's like, but even issue 4 is primarily just a one and done story that's probably going to be 24 to 26 pages. And it's just like a folktale type thing. It doesn't follow it's not a spin-off character. It's just this idea that I had that I wanted to do. And, it's one of those things. It's like, well, do I not put in a wizard cowboy story, or do I not put in this? And is that what the audience really wants? And my thought now is just like, no, if I make this one-shot story fun enough and good enough, does it really matter what's in the book? Or it's like, are people coming to the book for the characters, or are people coming to the book for myself? And I think more people are coming to the book because I'm making it, and I have like articles about nostalgia and articles about my workflow. And I think that's actually what people are getting from it is like a letter written by me to you, the reader. And I think that's been my mind shift. Which has been,
that's
been great.
It's a weird dichotomy. When the thing that you love in your hobby becomes a job, and becomes a grind. It's a weird dichotomy there.
Yeah, I mean,
drawing was my escape from a lot of stuff, right? Like, you have childhood problems and things like that, and you grow up, and what are you going to do? You're just going to go and draw and kind of create worlds in your head. And that was what I did. And then making the escape the job, right? When I'm having a bad day, the only thing I want to do is draw, because that's what I've been conditioned for 30 some odd years to do. And it's also like, no, I need to take a rest. Your hand hurts. Like, that's like, don't use that part for your relaxation. And I read a lot in college because I have an English degree, and I read a lot constantly now, and that became work, right? Like, that was another thing. It was like, oh, it's another thing you do for escape and enjoyment is read a book, and it becomes,
it's so much work, because now I'm not just reading. Yeah, I'm writing reviews for everybody else's stuff. I'm helping promote everybody else's stuff. And yes, I enjoy this. I love being here on the podcast and everything, but it's 60 to 70 hours of work setting up a schedule Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and reading all this content, 15 to 20 books a week, writing up reviews, scanning the stuff, doing the graphics, contacting folks like you to invite you to be on the show.
Yeah.
All these things. I'm not getting paid for it.
Yeah.
I wish I were, but I'm not.
And it's a full-time job. Like, that's just the nature of it is so crazy, where it's like,
that's why I needed that 2-year break, because nobody was I won't say nobody was ever appreciative, because I know that you were and Nick was and a few other people, but it was more like when I see them, you know what people watch on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know what kind of stuff they watch. It's not
Right.
it's not like our channels.
Right. Yeah. It's just, yeah, you finding your own niche and finding it really just swings back to like, why do you want to do it? Why is it for your own fulfillment and own enjoyment? And that's so like probably the more valid reason to do it and be like, oh yeah, I get to like show off people whose work I appreciate. And just like, this is one of the big things we have with IC3 is showcasing people who we like, who we find to be doing work that we find fun and enjoyable. And when you get guys like Tony McMillan and who have weird work. Attaboy's a weird book.
Yeah.
It was one of my favorite books the year that it came out, right? And I have like the self-published one. Now, I do not have the Mad Cave version. I have the big Treasury edition because he's
you and me both, brother.
Find his work so interesting. And I think
I interviewed him for Serious Creatures, for Attaboy, and Lumen.
Yeah.
So it was like, same thing with, there's probably a whole bunch of guys that are going to be there that I've interviewed at some point.
Oh yeah. That's kind of the thing is there's this kind of microcosm of independent creators who all know each other or met each other over COVID. COVID was 5 years ago. Over the last 5 years, so like we all kind of came together at that time and started making work. And what I have found now is the guys who are really serious about making work have risen. They are the top of the crop, right? Like comics, as you guys know, is like the most grueling schedule that you can possibly put upon yourself to make things. So when you hit that certain threshold of like, okay, I finally put out a comic, I don't want to ever do this again, which is, I think, what happened a lot in 5 years ago in the kind of the COVID boom of everybody having a bunch of time to make comics. And so you get this kind of, okay, there's a big outpouring of community and a bunch of people coming together and then a bunch of people exodusing, and you get like weird guys stayed around. You get Tony, you get Marty, you get Chris Anderson starting to do like weirder and weirder books, right? Because he was like, this is the stuff that I'm actually interested in.
I gotta drag out Abstracted Justice for you then.
Yeah, okay.
Everything's drawn in abstract art.
That's fun. I see. Like that's the fun stuff. Like when you get to weirder stuff. I mean, Matt Allison's Cancor book, which is wild.
Yeah,
I was talking to him the other couple weeks ago, and it was like, oh yeah, that's right. You're such a weird creator, and you're a weird guy, and you're making this stuff.
And I love you.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that I'm interested in.
Yeah, exactly.
It's on the outskirts. It's weirdly counterculture, even though it's not counterculture. No. But I feel like
it slides slightly to the weird, but it's adjacent to what we were familiar with.
Right. And I find Tony's work to be the same way, where it's like you're doing stories that are in this kind of traditional action adventure or biopic kind of story, and yet your drawing style is so unique and strong in its visual language that it becomes something that is on the outskirts. So it is like, this is a perfectly normal story that lies over here just because of the way it's being told.
Right.
Which I find so interesting. And part of me wishes I was more like that, right? I feel like I am so ingrained and so steeped and mired in the old. Yeah, I'm just like, it's like the Kniff in me is so there. Right, it's just ingrained, and it's that's all I have is Kniff, and that's fine. But nobody's calling me the Rembrandt of comics. That's the problem.
Well, you have to die for that to happen. You have to die, and then of course, then you become famous. So.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah. just don't do what Ed did, please. You know what I mean? I mean that was uncalled for, not on his part, but the way we treated him at the end. I know how much that hurt Jim.
Yeah.
And I haven't talked to Jim since before that happened, so I don't know how. You've talked to him, I'm sure, with involvement of the town.
No, I really haven't. I haven't like a lot of those guys because I'm such on a different plane when it comes to the production of that show. But no, and one of the things that it's weird to take a stance on an idea with the panels particularly. That was my main focus.
Right. That's what I was going to ask next, was what are the panels going to be?
Yeah. So I'll explain this first and then I'll go into the panels. I had a bunch of people reach out. You know, when panels happen, they're all like, we just finished this anthology book. Let's take a victory lap and like talk about the book at this show. And maybe that's something that we entertain in the future, but we have one day, right? And I didn't want to do a retrospective of a person's career, even though there's several people at this convention that I'm like, I would like to talk to you. You've been working in the industry for so long. But it is, I mean, the show is, our tagline is by creators for creators. And so one of the things that I wanted to do with the panels was make everything very useful, or at least like if you get 5 seconds of information from the panel, you've attained something for your time of going and watching it. And all of these things will be recorded and put out into the world on our YouTube channel for IC3. But the panels as they stand are pitching to comic shops. There is the Tastemakers panel, which is Mike Martz, Heather Antos, Eli Schwab, talking about like what they look at when they're actually looking at portfolios and what catches their eye. And I'm hoping to be able to guide that conversation into a little more of a nitty gritty and not just like, oh yeah, you know, if your anatomy's good. It's like, no. What is actually getting you to purchase these or hire these people?
Or not hire someone.
Or not hire somebody. Right. Exactly.
Sure.
And then we have, I just uploaded things today. It was revealed today. This is why we can talk about it so freely and openly. But the other panels, there's the day one panel, which is, so you've got an idea for a comic. How do you start? One of the things that I have a problem with in all writing, drawing, is we don't talk about the actual creating of something. Everything's kind of amorphous, like, oh, you have an idea and then you just sit down and write. And it's like, no. There's like tasks and things that you have to do to actually make something interesting. And like, do you have a certain book that you go to? I'm a big John Truby fan. The Anatomy of Story is a 22-point like plot structure thing, and every time I plot something out, I go to that and I just write 1 to 22 and I fill it out, and that gives me the skeleton enough to actually make something. We've got a bunch of people, like we've got Ro Higashi, who does her work is from webtoons and then translated to print. So it's like, how do you even, I can't even think about how you would start to think about the infinite scroll thing. That breaks my mind. How are you laying panels out? That's a question we have for her. Then we have Chris Anderson, who now writes and draws his own stuff, but has worked as just a artist with a writer. So how do you just start as an artist, right? You get the script. What are the things that you're doing as an artist? And Wesley Griffith, who's a cool, like up and coming. He's been doing books for the last several years, and he's putting out more books than I think anyone else, which is great. He also is a designer for Image, So his books are like really well designed, and then like this really like crazy cartoony action crime comic.
Right.
Is super fun. So it's just like, how are you building an action crime comic?
Yeah.
And then we have the asking good questions panel. The thing with that is, in this day and age where everyone has a podcast, can we get away from asking Dan Klaus what his brush he uses is? With the questions get really samey, right? We all know what brush Daniel Klaus uses now. We know what brush it is.
But does it really matter?
But it doesn't matter. And I think I go back and forth about this a lot. I think it does, because it gives people it gives people some kind of touchstone as to what it is.
It's not what brush you use. It's not just because good artists can take any tool and do many, many different things.
I agree with you on this point. However, I will disagree with you, because I think, like Monet is not using a round brush to make his brush marks, right? He is using a flat chiseled brush to make his brush marks, and that's the important part.
Choice. That's called the illicit choice making that we make as artists.
But that is choice. But that's choice that defines you as an artist, right? It is the thing that he is known for, is that brush stroke. Don't you want to know what kind of brush it is? Not saying that you need, like, that's not the end all be all brush, but it is the brush that makes
what a lot of people take away from that question is, oh, this is the brush.
And this is the reason for the asking good questions panel.
Yes.
It is to kind of define and figure out how can we ask the Dan Klaus brushstroke question in a way that is informative to people who are watching this thing, and not just being like, what kind of brush do you use? That's a crazy mark. Tony McMillan uses a parallel pilot pen, right? Those things are wild. They're really weird to use. How is he getting that line out of it is a more interesting question.
Yeah,
than,
exactly. Like you could buy yourself a $350 Winsor & Newton brush, but if you don't put the hundred and so hours behind it to learn how to use the tool,
right,
it's useless.
When I use these silver black velvet brushes, and they're a synthetic squirrel hair blend, because I don't like the springiness of like the Raphael or the Winsor Newton. Like, I tried those when I was younger, and then found when sable hair was banned. Do you guys remember that? When sable
yeah.
There was a big push for other types of brushes at the local art store that I went to in Tampa, and they were pushing these silver black velvet brushes. They had them in bulk, and they were selling them for like $5 a piece. And I was like, I can buy a couple of these. I can afford a $5 brush. And come to find out, it's like, that is so now ingrained into the brush line that I'm making, is so much that brush over a more springy brush. I like the way it lays. So like, I'm of two minds when it comes to, it's not the artist, or it's not the tool that makes the artist, it's the artist that makes the tool. But
well, it's a combination. But what I'm saying is, like, I use a lot of tech pens, but I also go with like Pentel brushes and Tombow watercolor brushes.
Those are cool. Those are great brushes.
And stuff like that. And people go, how do you get this look with that? And I'm sitting here, you watch me, I'm drawing.
Yeah. That's kind of what the question should never be, how do you do this, right? It's the same question that you get with, in acting, you get it all the time. It's like, how do you remember all those lines? It's like, well, that's my job. My job is to literally remember lines. That's what I am being paid to do. It's know where I have to stand and say my line. That's all they're paying me for. That's the baseline of what the job is.
I think what they're trying to ask you, though, is how do you remember how to emotionally connect those lines and how to perform them? There's a difference between saying your lines and performing your lines.
So this is another, I have thoughts on this as well. I think you can yell your lines in the park, right? Shakespeare in the Park is effectively, you have nothing, right? You have no kind of emotion that you can have, because the guy in the back, when when you're not mic'd up, and you have to just yell your line, can still have the emotional impact of like you whispering something in somebody's ear, because the energy, like what you're actually trying to achieve is like the energy, the transference of energy between the actor and the audience. Similar to comics, I think you have a transference of energy from the pen stroke line to the reader's eyes. Jeff Lemire. This is now I'm getting like, we're late enough in the podcast where I'm getting woo woo and spiritual about it. But Jeff Lemire has a great quote where he said, like, comic books is like reading someone's handwriting. And so I think when you're able to transfer emotion and sentimentality and anger through a mark, right? We see that in fine art all the time. We go, oh, the artist was really mad. In comics, we have the same thing. We also just have the luxury of the written word on top of it. It's so much more meaningful to get a handwritten note than it is to get a typed up note. We used to think they took more time. They don't anymore. It's like the same amount of time to handwrite it as it is to type it up. And then print it off. Now I have to go to the printer. Now the printer's out of ink. Now there's all this stuff. Like there's more to do when you're actually printing off a letter. If you just have a handwritten note, it's just kind of like it comes out. And not only now I don't have to pick the font that expresses myself. I get to express myself through my own handwriting. And if I want to be angry, it can be bolder and rougher and more expressive. That's how like it is. The transfer of energy, I think, is a very real thing.
Yeah, you're absolutely
especially
right.
when it comes to like art. We don't talk about it when it comes to comics, though. That's kind of the big thing, is like these are kind of headier artistic things that we don't necessarily translate, because it's a medium that has been kind of stifled by the superhero mass media thing.
Yeah,
and I think superheroes can work, but it's also like working with multiple people. It starts to dilute the sauce a little bit.
Yeah, I think what it is that everybody worked with, especially in, let's call it mainstream corporate comics.
Yeah.
Okay. There is a certain style, a certain construction that they want to fit these mediums. And that restricts our abilities to do what you're talking about as far as expressing individuality, expressing individual emotion through the characters. And that's why a lot of these characters, you'll see a lot of books, they feel flat. They feel like there's nothing there, because they're trying to capture this technical look rather than what we used to do in all comics, which is be self-expressive through the work.
Right.
And so the younger generations that grew up on Image and learned, okay, I gotta be the next Todd, I gotta be the next Jim Lee. They never learned the understructures. They never learned how to do the expressiveness. They learned how to do this look.
How to do the cool look. Yes. And now this goes back to like the new generation, the people coming up who are like praising Tilly Walden. These are the people who grew up reading Raina Telgemeier, right? That's a very different cartoonist than anybody who's coming out now, right? Like she is the best selling cartoonist of all time, right? Like she sold more books than anybody. And that's a really interesting thing. And seeing her draw in a, I guess, for lack of a better term, more traditional style, and traditional being like 1920s, right? Like a traditional, like dot eyes, circle nose, squiggly mouth, Charlie Brown style. It works as a way to like, that is the expression. There's that Scott McCloud triangle thing where it's like you get to, like, Tintin is really relatable because he doesn't look like a human perfectly. Like his eyes are expressive enough that anyone can relate to him. And then you go all the way over to like Neil Adams, and it's like, well, that is a man running around in tights, right? That's the two dichotomies of it, the two sides of it. And how much can you relate to Hal Jordan when he could just have dot eyes and like flies around? I find that could be so much more relatable. Why is Mickey Mouse so relatable? Because anybody can be Mickey Mouse. Like the more cartoony you get, the more I don't know, the easier it is to have more representation in your own work. Back to your like squash and stretch baboon point. It's one of the reasons why I was like, I need to start pulling it into that way. But this is beside the point. What is the other panel? There's one more panel.
Okay.
It's the Jamie Motti Power Hour. This is my favorite panel because it's my panel. It's going to be me and Motti Keene.
Just doing what we just did.
Just doing what we just did. Exactly what we just did. We're going to be having two artists with a secret prompt written by a writer, and they are going to draw the panel live in front of the screen or projected on the screen. And Motti and I are going to color commentate while they're doing it. So we're going to see how two artists approach the same panel description and talk about the differences and how they're setting it up and what composition they are using, and are they, what are the things that they are focusing on when they are designing a panel and drawing a panel.
That's very cool. I like that.
That is a very cool thing. So these are the kind of things that I want to see at a convention.
It's panels that matter. It's panels that actually kind of do something for the world.
Whereas, people want, I remember the last real panels I did, which were over a decade ago. They were like asking me, what I look for as an editor and stuff. And I'm like, well, it depends on what the project is.
Yeah.
And when we want generic, no, there is no generic answer to that, because every project has its own uniqueness, and every team that you form has to be able to coexist with each other and play off of each other. And, what am I aiming for? What target audience am I aiming for? There's so many aspects of this. That's why I'm going to be real interested to see the panel that you do with Mike and Heather and stuff. And I wonder, Heather gets so defiled online for no reason. I don't understand it other than she's a woman. It's like, what is everything she does is sexist? What are you talking about?
Heather was the first editor that I ever followed. Heather, I have known Heather for 9 years. She and I, some editor at Marvel back a long time ago was like, oh, hey, I have this new assistant editor. This is Heather. And I was like, oh, cool. And then that's how I have known her for years. Don't think she would remember that. It's all like nameless, faceless Twitter things. But like we've had several conversations over the years. And I find so many people having that are in positions of power, editorial power, have some kind of, everyone's going to hate something about you. That's kind of
well, I don't get it though. It was just like, I know it's just the fanboys who like to complain on their show. That's what they do. But it frustrates me because it's like, do you guys even have any clue what you're talking about, or who these people are, or what they're about?
Yes. Well, if they're people who have shows, they should listen to our Asking Good Questions panel.
Yes, exactly.
And figure out what they should actually be talking about.
Yes. So as it is, I'm going to give you a quick. Let me find a thing here. If it's going to let me do it, there it is. I gave number one a 4 out of 5 on the rating. I haven't gotten through SPAKOW 2 because I've got stacks and stacks of stuff I got to get reviewed for the week. But Thursday night, we're gonna all three of us review all three of them, just so you know. Nice. So we'll be back on that. But highly recommend this. some people say $12 is too much. I don't. I get it.
Yeah.
Well, how did you come to that price point?
Because it was originally 10 and I was like, oh, I'm losing money. And so I jumped up. Issue 3 is 15.
Right,
and that's going to be like, but issue 3 is 48 pages. That's kind of how I wanted to keep something that was under the 2 Baboon books that I have. The hardcovers are 25 a piece. And I wanted to have something that was under that at conventions, that selling point. The thing is, printing's expensive. Paper's not cheap anymore. And even if you're using like the lower quality paper, it's still expensive.
It puts you in a tough spot, puts all of us in a tough spot.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you can still look at this by going to his Substack at bowtiepress.substack.com.
Yes. Yeah. And I have there's a subscription for this, for it, where it's $5 a month. And that gets you access to all of the posts about SPAKOW and as it's being made. I also ship the books out to those people. So they get free shipping on books because it's coming out quarterly. And so issue 4, we're starting the subscriptions for that now. So that's kind of like the best of both worlds. Like, it works and people get the book, and then it's also like it helps me keep the lights on and doing what I'm going to do. So
yeah, that's what I was saying. I wish more people would kind of do that format more. Is do the book Substack or do the Substack on Patreon or something, and then put your book together and do your crowdfunding or whatever platform you're going to do it with.
Yeah, I've been trying to avoid doing crowdfunding and just taking pre-orders with SPAKOW just to see how it worked. It seems to be okay. Like, I got really scared of being beholden to the one website, the Kickstarter. And so I did one through Crowdfunder, and it was still like, it was like pulling teeth to get people to input their credit card information. It was like, no, this is the other site. This is like what it is. But knowing that you have a built-in audience through Kickstarter, and then you're switched to another thing that you don't own, that's part of the thing that I have a problem with, is like, I don't have ownership over Kickstarter. I don't have ownership over Crowdfunder. Even though Crowdfunder was great to work with, I really enjoyed it, but having ownership of the Substack and having ownership of my email list and being like, oh, this is what it's going to be, and then hit this link and go and pre-order the book via my big cartel seems to be working pretty well for me right now. Seems to be working.
You could always go the Brian Polito route. You know, Polito just said, screw that. I'm not paying Kickstarter a fee. I'm going to start my own Kickstarter. And he started his own crowdfunding.
So this is things that we've had conversations about with a bunch of people. It's like, can we run a Kickstarter?
Being silly.
Yeah, start your own crowdfunding platform.
Yeah. And it's basically just a pre-order site, right? Like, that's what it comes down to, is maybe you can get a couple extra goodies, but you're just pre-ordering the book.
Yeah. I think that's again, that's another topic that, I mean, you've only got one day, you know?
Yeah. Yes. Next year is going to be 2. We've already been talking about it. 2026 Indie Comics Creator Con, I believe, is going to be 2. So
okay, the same location, or
that's to be decided.
Okay.
Right. I really like the location that we're in. We may have outgrown it. That's kind of the consensus. Is we'll see how this goes.
Okay.
But this will be our second year at the Southern Connecticut University. We take over the entire 3rd floor of the building. That's like, and there's like multiple classrooms, so it's like really, there's like one big hall but multiple classrooms, and people are kind of all over the place. Down the hallway, it's a big thing.
Okay,
but hey, here's my website that I just made, like this past weekend.
He's just being a naughty boy tonight. Come on, I know you want up here. Okay.
So are you advanced in website design, or was this just
No, this is Squarespace.
okay?
I don't know anything about anything basically at all. So this was me just putting something together that I thought was visually appealing. All of the photos were taken the day I was making the website. So like,
I find because I've done some. I thought because I'm a colorist and I'm an artist, like all this stuff would come easy, but I suck so hard as a graphic designer. Like that is not my forte.
it is. It is not my forte either.
Yeah. And by the way, even though I'm putting the address here where people can read it, it is in the description of this video for both Bowtie Press and the Indie Comics Convention links to that site as well.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
Yeah. I don't know. He's a little bit weird tonight. He just got
so not to get. I don't want to get political, but that being said, are you at all concerned about skyrocketing prices because of the political climate?
Yes. I know, and I was not working on stuff that was, this is not, I feel like it hasn't been new. I feel like a lot of people have been trying to figure out how can we print books with smaller print runs, not overseas. And I think that's been a topic of conversation for a while, right? Like, it mainly just for shipping costs, right? Because freight shipping is just 100 times more expensive than shipping down the road. And I use the printer that I use has free shipping if you get over a certain amount if you pay over a certain amount. That's really great. I think that's a major concern. I think that's a concern that everyone's kind of having because I don't know if we have the infrastructure of printing that we used to have. I mean, I live in Savannah and we have a paper mill, right? That's one of the big Savannah jobs over here is like working at the paper mill. Okay. And we are shipping things out to be shipped back in. Like it's
makes no sense.
Yeah. So, and that's just the way that it's been working. That's the way it works. And so concerned only if for only no other reason than the prices of things are going to go up because the base costs of things are going to go up.
Right.
And that's, the concern is like me to the consumer, right? It's me having to raise the book a couple dollars to like go up. And can I earn that uptick in price, right? That's going to be, that's where my concern really lies is, which feels maybe like a cop out of an answer, but it's definitely like more concerning to me to see like, okay, it's going to individually cost X amount of money to ship a book or to print a book. It's going to cost me more money to ship a book than it has. So like, this is just, we have to kind of we have to think about the pricing because that's what we're doing. Like we're at the end of the day, I'm a bookseller who happens to draw the book he makes. That's kind of.
Joey just came right out and said it. He says, "I hope tariffs don't make the price go up." So
yeah. The thing is, it's I'm completely willing to spend $20 on a book that I find worth it.
Well, I think $20 is the new $5.
Yeah, and I think that's the weird kind of world we're living in now. I was talking to my mom the other day. I was like, everything just cost $100 to $200. Like that's just baseline what things cost.
Yeah, and it's not just that though. I mean, would things cost as much as they do if we got the level of production that some of our products deserve? I'm not talking about the quality of the production. I'm talking about the sheer mass numbers and distribution that some of this stuff just doesn't get that it probably should be getting.
Yeah,
Right.
I think the big problem is you see numbers, and I think this is a reader perception
Mm-hmm.
and an audience perception, is they see the numbers that a Marvel movie is grossing, and they see, oh, this movie made X amount of dollars at the box office, and then you see the same time you see the Spider-Man book on the shelf, and you're like, oh, this is $7. Like, this is $6 for 20 pages. I can spend $10 and go see a movie for 2 hours, and so it's the production of the comic has gone up, the production value has gone up, the cost is rising. Brandon Sanderson had a talk about this recently that I just caught like a tail end of, but he was like, the problem with books is that the cost of a book, a cost of a hardcover, can't go up. Like the audience, your audience doesn't want to pay more than $25 or $30 for a hardcover book anymore, or they just not even anymore. Nobody wants to. He goes, don't do what I do, which is write massive books. You're losing money if you write one giant tome as opposed to 2 smaller books. He's like, it will take you less time to make, and it will make, and your production cost is lower, the actual production of it. And this is a problem that he's had because he started self-publishing recently, right? Like he started his own imprint. So he's now recognizing that this is the problem, which is the problem that all indie creators have been saying for the last, several decades.
Right.
That I find, that's where I like, the concern isn't with necessarily the raising prices, although that is a concern. The concern is the audience's awareness as to what is actually being, why does this cost this much?
Right.
Should artists and writers be making $1,000 a page? Is that something that should be happening? Is that amazing? Yes. Could it lower the price of the book a little bit for the audience? But is it for the audience, or is it for the creator? And where does that line sit? And how does everyone become happy? And how does everyone kind of find your equilibrium?
Well, $1,000 a page sounds amazing, but when you figure out the sheer number of hours that you're putting into the creation, like that $1,000 comes down to like it's not that great.
Yeah, it's. I mean, if you're doing 5 pages a week at $1,000 a page, you're doing. I mean, that's $20,000 a month. I could do that. Like that would be. I think I could make that work for me. But that's that's like the top tier crazy guys that are doing that, and that's fine. That's all grit and dandy. I think that we have started paying people and then not paying other people, and then we have like this weird disparity between the two, and then that's hurting the audience because this book costs so much money, right? Batman costs so much money to make. Why do we have another Batman title? It's because this Batman book doesn't cost that much to make, and it's offsetting. Like if you have to buy Batman and Carrie Kelly to understand what's going on in Batman, and it's $14 for the two of them, and one book costs for the equivalent of this thing costs $10 to make.
One costs $4, right?
And the other one costs $4. It's like that's what's happening, and I don't mind. Like I don't mind that mindset, but it's like you start to get real twisted with it, and I like.
Yeah, it's like, why is this person only worth this much, and why is that person worth this much? And
right, it's like balancing the books at the end of the day is really tricky, and like so when you're working on something that's so individual, right? Like I have with SPAKOW 3 coming out, I'll have 3 issues of SPAKOW and 2 issues or 2 hardcovers of the Baboon at my table at all time.
Right.
The Baboon's been paid for a while now. SPAKOW 1 and SPAKOW 2 have been paid for a while now. I just ordered SPAKOW 3. I take out ad space in SPAKOW to offset the printing costs of stuff. But once that first run is done, I'm not going and hitting up people again for the second printing of SPAKOW 3. But at that point, things are starting to even out, and I sell a couple of BABOON books that pays for a printing of a book over here. That becomes what it's all the balancing of books and balancing of things, which I think is harder and harder to do as an individual. Must be insane to do as a corporation. I can only imagine like what Marvel and DC are 40% of the market share of comic books. Like, yikes, that's crazy. I would hate to be in charge. I would love to be in charge. DC, if you need somebody to be in charge, I will do it. But but I would hate to be in charge.
Geez. See, everybody wants to take DC. Nobody wants to take Marvel.
Yeah, I don't want to die on that sinking ship. That's
Oh Lord. I guess it's up to me and Kim Petey to fix Marvel. And we'll get we'll get Jim Rugg and Dave Olbrich and Jamie to fix DC.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll fix Marvel. I just have no like. There's a certain nostalgia thing with DC for me that I care that stuff more. That might be better, but it's probably why I should go to Marvel. I don't care as much. That's not true. I'll listen. Daredevil becomes the flagship character. He's everywhere. It's just Daredevil 24/7. Fantastic Four and Daredevil. I'm living in a good world right now, where we've got a new Superman movie that looks kind of cool, and we've got new Daredevil, and we've got new Fantastic Four. I'm a happy man. This is.
Yep, exactly.
I love. This is why I love having guys like you on the show. There's so many people who are so cranky, and all they want to do is complain, and you are just like this breath of fresh air. You're happy.
Yep.
Wow, that's wild, because I have conversations, and my biggest fear when on What Is Comics is I don't want to sound like Howard Chaykin. That's my big.
No, you are a breath of optimism.
Because I am a curmudgeon-y, cranky guy when it comes to like when the dust settles.
Yeah.
I can be pretty.
The thing is, I think, yes, I know you can be critical.
Yeah.
But your criticism is one of someone who is learned and someone who is aware of what he's being critical of.
Oh, well, thank you.
And what I mean by that is so many people are critical of things where, like, okay, why is this person working at Marvel? They're not qualified. Who are you to judge? What's your background to say why this person is qualified?
The qualifications, yeah.
Whereas, okay, and they go, well, what's yours? And I'm like, I'm a 33-year veteran, and I'm an editor. I'm a talent scout who helped bring in Bendis and Brubaker and Remender and a whole bunch of other people. So if I say this person who came into Marvel or DC that they brought in, who's a world-famous author who has won more awards than the person complaining has experienced orgasms in their lives, it's like, hey, you're complaining because they're a woman, or you complaining because they're not white? What are you complaining about exactly?
Yeah.
And
I feel
that's
like
what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean that's a valid critique. I think there's a lot of like like, oh, you're not from comics? Did you read like? And that's another aspect that I get all the time, or I see all the time.
Yeah, well, they're not from comics. I'm like, do you understand that the people who wrote comics in the 30s came from pulp and science fiction?
Right.
Yeah. It's like. It's kind of, we need more people who write comics. The very people that they complain the most about as the bad writers are the people who used to be comic shop clerks.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's true. So it's like, what did you, I don't understand what it is you're looking for, but okay, let's take a quick look again at your website.
Oh. Don't click on all of the links. They work. They should work.
Yeah.
Let's fingers crossed everything works.
Yeah, I wanted to show that you can get this SPAKOW book 1, 2, and 3 on here.
Yes.
You can get the Miss Lloyd Menace. This is a collection of the BABOON dailies, number 1. I don't. What is this? A new one? What is this one? Well, that's a sketch cover variant. Okay, cool. I didn't know you did sketch cover variants. That's neat.
You are not on my screen. You're just on the.
Yeah, same here.
You're just on the home page.
Oh, sorry. There you go.
Yeah, it's not updating.
It's not updating. Okay. I wonder why. Oh, I know why. Okay. Just a second. It's being silly.
I was like, what are we talking about here? Yeah. Oh, about the sketch covers. I figured so with SPAKOW, I have started stapling and cutting and trimming all of my books. One, it allows me to have a little more freedom into what I can put into it. So like different page qualities. Issue 2 has a centerfold poster in it. And so now with this ability to make whatever kind of paper I want, I can do sketch covers with like the paper that I actually draw on. So just trim that down. And cut
these
it
are
up.
a little bit pricey, but not really because you're buying original art.
This is yeah.
This is actual on Bristol board that you're getting, and there was only 12 of them. So
yes, yeah.
You're actually getting something that's worth the money.
I made a rubber stamp for the first time in my life. Found some friends who taught me how to do lino cut. So wild.
But yeah, I mean, you can get all this neat stuff, and here's some original art that you can buy as well. So pretty happy go lucky site there.
It works.
Is this the same? Yeah, okay. I want to go back to the other page. It's just going to let me. It won't. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close that out then. Go back to the other one. I don't know why it wouldn't do it before, but okay. Share screen. Go back to this one. All right. What is Spice?
Spice is the Savannah Pooler Indie Comics Expo. That happens in April, on April 4th. That's in Savannah. It's my hometown show, so I will be there.
Okay. All right. Yeah. You really. When did you move? You moved from Tampa to Savannah, or did you have other places in between?
I moved from Tampa to Savannah. Yeah.
Okay.
Right when COVID let up, so I've been here for about 4 years.
Yeah.
Like just about 4 years.
Yeah, because I remember you had just moved to Savannah, and you were like, I kind of want to go to the bars and get to know people, but
yeah. Hey, let me tell you, that happened. I went to a lot of the bars and I met a lot of people. And then I started running the drink and draw, and that's been kind of, solidified my place in this city.
Yeah. Now everybody goes, it's that drink and draw guy.
That's yeah.
It's like,
You must have to rent out like an entire back room of a bar for that now.
So luckily, the bar that I use is right next to the comic shop. It's called White Whale Craft Ales, and it is basically just this big open room that has a bar in it. And we have a bunch of tables set up, and we can just draw. And my best friend is the bar manager, so it gets real easy to run a thing in that place.
That's very cool. I love it.
Do you what is your go-to drink while you're drawing?
I love a wine. The more I think about it, the more I'm getting to a place. Drawing with beer doesn't ever satisfy me. Drawing with a glass of wine, painting with a glass of wine, it's a beautiful thing.
It's elegant.
It is elegant. I used to paint with martinis, and that was a wild, like, you just drop off very quickly with a martini. Your skill, your ability goes real fast.
Yeah.
With wine, you're like, okay, yeah. Oh, look, that's a looser line. That's so cool. Happy accidents.
Yeah.
Martinis, you're like, all right, I'm on my second martini. I should probably stop.
I'm on my second martini. Watch me ink this with the toothpick.
Yeah. No.
And yeah, hey, watch this. I'm gonna spit with the. I'm gonna just spit the olive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. I just wondered because I don't drink at all. So like I try to go to those and people just like, you're no fun to be with. Why? Because I'm acting like a fool.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We are very open and welcoming to all walks of life. We've got people who just come in and drink a Coke and draw, and it's great. It's just a networking event, right? Like it's just a networking event guised in people hanging out. I tell people all the time when we're doing it that I've never been hired by somebody not my friend, and that's so become friends with these people because they are the people who down the road will hire you. That's kind of how it works.
Networking is key.
Networking is key. Friendships is key, right? Like having some kind of relationship with people outside of just work.
Because I find that editors, it doesn't matter necessarily how good you are. It matters that you're on time.
Yeah.
You show up and you get the job done.
Yeah.
And on schedule.
Yeah.
And that they know you.
Yeah. And if they like you, that's a double bonus.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I worked on a book with Vita Ayala and Danny Lohr over COVID called Quarter Killer. Came out through Comixology. Vita's one of my closest friends. I got that job, and I should not have been drawing that book. Let's be real. I drew that book because I drew that book, but I was like, you guys found the whitest guy you know to draw this book, and it is an Afro cyberpunk adventure book, and it's great. Actually, Vita and I are talking about figuring out a way to put it in, like, start running it in SPAKOW. But we got the rights reverted back to us late last year. So we're like, oh, we can do something with this. But Vita's one of my best friends. We were talking recently and it was like, we've known each other for 10 years. And we are, we get on the phone once a week, once every other week. I've built so many comics around and with this person that it's just like, oh yeah, you need these people around you. They got me my agent, which is wild. Like that's the kind of thing that happens when you have not only a working relationship with people, but you actually have a true friendship when you can call people when you're like, hey, I need work. Do you know anybody? Is there somebody here? Like it's calling in favors is a lot easier if they're your friend.
Exactly. And by the way, you are not the whitest guy. I walk by and snowmen go, damn.
Yeah, but Vita hasn't called you up to color anything. and see, that's exactly the kind of person I'm talking about, because Vita's one of those people who gets wrongly criticized for whatever reasons.
Yeah.
I just don't understand that. I mean, I'm not saying she's my favorite person in the world or she's my favorite writer in the world, but I can see the quality in her work. I understand why people have hired her and put her on the position she's been put in.
Yes.
And it isn't like she didn't make the right connections and do the right things to pay her dues in her own era and time. And yet you see these people like, oh, she got hired because she's black or Cuban or whatever she is. It's like, no.
Yeah. Well, I have fortunately, or the fortunate thing I feel for me is I have surrounded myself with people and creators that are constantly criticized, and I just don't get criticized. Stephanie Phillips is the first person I made a book with. It was one of my close friends. Vita, Danny, these people who I respect tremendously.
Yeah, but the thing is,
make books with constantly, and I have the fortunate.
Let's see what happens when we put you on a Batman book, and let's see. Then you'll get criticism.
Hey, I'll take it. I would love to get that criticism.
Yeah. It's like, what the heck is he trying to do? Batman by means of Eisner or something?
Yeah, and hey, and I can say yes, of course. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Batman by Weenies of Eisner sounds awesome.
Well, I agree with you, but you know you know exactly who I mean when I say there's certain
Certainly, there are creators, there are people out here who live on the internet and like to make their presence known in and around negativity, and I am not that person.
Outrage is the new 15 minutes.
Yes, yeah. I just don't. I find it so. I don't find it necessary. I find it much easier to like things and talk about things that I like, and criticism with a tinge of love on the criticism. I think is definitely.
I may be tough love, but I do care about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So, do you have a public Facebook? Can people find you on Facebook?
Oh, yeah.
I have a Facebook. It is Jamie Jones.
Okay.
That is. I also have an Art of Jamie Jones page, which is never updated because I'm never on Facebook. My personal Facebook page is updated a lot more than anything else.
Yeah.
Are you on the rest of what other social media are you on?
I'm in all the social medias are Art of Jamie Jones. Except for Twitter. I don't think I just
call that Muskrat X channel now.
Yeah, I don't like it never did anything for me. And I'm on Blue Sky, but I'm not posting on Blue Sky. Like I'm on these things. You can follow me. I'm just not there.
I've never found Blue Sky. I have yet to find Blue Sky useful.
I have yet to find anything useful.
I got one job from Twitter.
Yeah, it's weird. Like if that's what you're trying to do on those sites, I don't know if that's necessarily the right thing. I know people get hired from those sites all the time. I have never been. I don't even know if I've made a meaning. That's not true. I've made some meaningful connections, but
I'd say you
but
have.
nothing more than at a bar at a convention. Like you know,
I colored a hack and slash piece, and from a coloring book. That who's the creator? I can't think of his name. He saw it and in like 5 minutes and offered to buy it. So that was my one and only job off Twitter.
Nice.
Okay. Do you have a question for Jamie, little one?
We've been going for 2.5 hours.
Yes, we are. Yeah, we're
wild.
winding down. We're winding down. That's why I was asking if the cat had anything to say. So, Jamie, we know we're going to see you in a couple of weeks at Indie Comics Creator Con.
Yes.
And then in April, we got you at the Savannah show.
Yes.
And then in May, it'll be like Heroes Con, right?
June. Yeah. Late. I think it's late June this year. So June is Heroes Con. That's the next one.
Oh, he froze up.
Oh.
Well,
it's just you and me now.
I don't know if he was going to wrap up, but thank you so much for being on the show. We greatly appreciate it. You're just a pleasure to talk to. Really,
oh, thanks.
Honestly.
Thank you.
Is there any other information that you would like anybody to know? Oh, he's back.
He's back.
Yeah, it was just a quick zip disconnection on Spectrum's part. That's all. That's what that was. But yeah, like I said, those are your next 3 shows. And is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to like add in at the end here?
Oh no, I got to get on my soapbox a little bit. I got to talk about SPAKOW.
We covered it all.
I guess the big thing is if anyone's interested, the Substack, the bowtiepress.substack.com, and if you would like, become a subscriber, become a paid subscriber. That is kind of the next big thing. That's kind of my big push this year is kind of ramping that up.
Bowties.substack.com.
Bowtiepress.substack.com.
Okay. All right.
Alrighty.
It's also linked on it's on my website as well, so you can just hit.
I'm going to go ahead and put that up there for people to see, though, just to be sure before we leave.
Lovely.
Ready. Okay, now let me get this silly thing here. It's being fussy on me, of course.
Oh, happy Mardi Gras, everybody! That's the thing.
Oh yes,
My parents are
Is
Cajun.
it Mardi Gras already?
Yeah. Fat Tuesday's today.
You know, the only reason I know that it's Fat Tuesday and Lent coming up is because my town is a huge Punchki town.
Okay.
You know what a Punchki is?
Yeah.
one final thing. I know some
The
people
6,000 calorie donuts.
Yes.
Yeah, we want to show a quick thing of
Some SPAKOW.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is just gorgeous.
yeah.
Thank you.
Like I see this and I want to color this.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you know, what paper stock is this printed on?
Regular paper stock. What it is, the issue, it is, it's like pure white hammermill, but I add all of the coloring, like the texture stuff is all digital stuff.
Okay. Well, no, I was saying it's not like glossy stock or anything like that.
Oh God, no.
Okay.
No, it is a matte.
Darling, do you think we can afford glossy stock?
No, I hate the way my stuff looks glossy. It just doesn't sit into the page.
That is his kitty trying to knock things down, I suspect.
Oh,
Yes. Sorry about
that. When it comes to paper quality and paper stock, I tend to err on the side of uncoated, like lower quality uncoated stuff. Something that the ink can actually sit into.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
were just talking about that.
Yeah, we were. No, this like the motions of these different characters with the baboon versus the ninja guy here. That's what he's talking about. A lot of the stretch movements and just it looks so fluid comparative to others. If this was drawn by some of the top name business guys in the business, it would be like the 3 panels would have to be like 3 pages of stiff movement, you know, one shot thing. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's fun to look at this though, and I want to make sure some people got to see that because we've been talking so much about so many things. But
I got it.
But no, it's fine. This is one of my favorite things about the shows when we get people like that who have stuff to say, you know. So it's great. But thank you, Jamie, for being on the show again. We've missed you.
Thank you for having me.
And we're gonna bow out shortly here. ACC again, March 15th. Southern Connecticut University.
Southern Connecticut University, March 15th.
And
Doors open at 10?
Yeah, 10 to 6, I think it is. Or 10
in
to 5.
New Haven, Connecticut. Yeah.
New Haven, Connecticut. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And I know that means, you know, how am I going to get a plane ticket and go on this in this Trump economy and this Trump safety? But, you know, how are you getting there? You aren't driving all the way up there, are you?
No. I am flying.
Yeah.
Luckily, there's a Velo. It goes out of Connecticut. It's their hub is in New Haven, so I can actually just fly right into New Haven from Savannah, which is wild.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Okay, again, visit him at bowtiepress.substack.com. And you know, Jamie Jones is at Art of Jamie Jones, so you can find him there as well for his for contact information or anything else. Me, you can reach at Quoth Raven LBR72@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook at Lewis.WriteRaven. You can find King Color Man, Christopher M. Hall, 1973@gmail.com, and at Chris Hall at Facebook as well.
Fatboy 73.
Fatboy 73, that's right. So we appreciate you all for watching, and we're going to see you guys on Thursday when it's review night. Nice. We're going to review the rest of SPAKOW 1 through 3, and you know, Jamie's been getting busy this week, though. I'm sure
SPAKOW 3 should arrive at my door on Thursday. So while you guys are talking, I'll be binding and trimming some books. That's what's going to happen.
All right.
All right, very cool.
Well, but here's the thing: you can actually listen to us while you're trimming.
That's true. It's very true.
All right, man. Thank you for coming by. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and so let's go ahead and get on out of here, folks. We'll see you next time. But the Raven, nevermore.
Nevermore.
Hopefully my machine will share what it's supposed to share. And it's not going to run it. So I'm running my exit piece again.
Oh. Ba-da-ba-da-bum, ba-bum, 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 ba-bum.
Yeah, I hate when it does this. Let's see. Oh, it closed out the whole thing. Of course. Why would we want to run things properly? There we go. Now we'll share it.